Turning points change the course of our lives, whether it's a big decision, overcoming an obstacle or tragedy, or taking a leap of faith. These stories of inspiration and resilience are what Turning Point is all about. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Turning Point. I'm your host, Priya, and I'm joined today by the founder of the Beauty of Eczema, Camille Knowles. Camille created a skincare line that is vegan and cruelty-free. It is formulated for people with sensitive skin. And she did this after she ended up in hospital because of a severe eczema flare-up. Camille has also written a book, and we're going to talk more about that today as well. Welcome to Turning Point, Camille.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
It's so great to have you. You know, I was so inspired by your story, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it today. And I actually do want to just start with your turning point. I know this was a really difficult time in your life. It was in 2013. I believe you were 21 years old at the time, right?
I was, yeah. I just turned it, yeah.
Okay, and this is when you ended up in hospital. I know I mentioned it there in the introduction, but take us back to that time. Tell us what happened and what you remember.
Yeah, so I do have pictures in case you want me to show for anyone watching on video. But I've always grown up with sensitive skin, eczema, and, it would be on my hands and in the corners of my elbows. And I always felt a little bit different. And it always affected my life to the point where it would dictate where I studied or who I made friends with. It just was dictating every area of my life, what I did, how I socialized. But it wasn't up until the point of the age 21 where it covered me head to toe for around 8 months. It got infected because the skin was broken and not healing. And because it got infected, it was all over my face. My face swelled double the size from the infection. And I felt severely ill. Waking up, going in the shower was excruciating pain. Just even to try and get ready, dress for work, my clothes would stick to my skin. It was a really horrible time. But yeah, so I ended up in hospital because of the infection, incredibly ill. And yeah, that was my darkest moment. And at that point in my life, I was told, you're 21, you're an adult now, you haven't grown out of the skin condition. Best case scenario is antidepressants to cope with the condition and steroids to manage it.
Wow. So I know you said there that eczema had been part of your life. It had been a condition that you lived with since you were younger, but this was the first time that it got to this kind of debilitating point.
Yes. I mean, growing up, I always thought it was debilitating. I always felt like, why do I have this? And felt really down about it. Very, just why me kind of mentality. But I didn't realize until I was 21 when I was literally covered head to toe just how much it can take over your entire life. That was the point. It was where I hit rock bottom with it.
Yeah, I have mild eczema as well. And until I read your story, I had no idea just how severe this condition could be. I get kind of small patches here and there, and especially I know weather can really impact its severity as well. But you also talk in your story a lot about mental health and about how that can impact this condition as well. This is something that I had never heard of before. So how did you learn about that connection?
Yeah, so growing up, I was always kind of trying to join the dots of why I had this condition, and I tried to have a more holistic way of viewing it. And I thought, if I could eat the right diet or exercise, do all the right lifestyle things, then I wouldn't have this condition. So for a period of my life, I had a diet where it worked for me. I was mainly plant-based and my skin was glowing. But then because I was so sure that it was diet, I became afraid of certain foods. I became afraid of even like tomatoes, for example, because I was told I was intolerant to them. And that fear of food became an obsession. And I felt like the only reason I had eczema was because of certain foods. So when I was 21, I was avoiding all those fear foods, living off practically juice alone and nuts because I felt like they were the safest foods, and unknowingly becoming very malnourished. and not realizing that actually it wasn't food that was causing my, severe eczema flare up. It was stress in my life. It was untrapped emotion, and my mental health. I had no idea that I was deeply suffering with essentially an eating disorder, but also a lot of mental health stresses. And the moment that I acknowledged that, and the moment I got help for that, and started taking care of my mental health, was when my skin really had a positive turning point. And I was able to live my life healthy, glowing, happy, and not feeling so trapped with this skin condition.
Yeah, so this all really happened after you hit that period of rock bottom that you mentioned in 2013. You were in hospital. So tell me about those first steps. What happened?
So when I came out of hospital, I mean, I'll show a picture just for when, if anyone's watching this, and you can just see how unwell I was.
Oh, wow, it doesn't even look like you.
No, and it does break my heart seeing these pictures. I mean, I've got a whole little album of how bad my skin was all over, and I keep them here just kind of to remind myself how far I've come and to help people understand when I'm talking about it, that I really do understand what it's like to have your skin deeply affect your life. So I came out of hospital like that. And at that moment in my life, as I say, it was excruciating to live with. I wasn't sleeping. Showers felt like acid was pouring on my skin. I was in so much pain, lacking sleep, completely isolated from friends. I couldn't see a positive future for myself. And the thought of taking antidepressants and medication for the rest of my life from the age of 21 was unbearable. I just didn't feel like that was a life for me. So I had two thoughts. I had one thought of not existing, which I hate to admit, but it's reality. And my other thought was, maybe I can find a way out. Maybe I can be the person to guide people. So that night I was Googling online, looking for somebody to inspire me, to help me realize that there could be a way out of this dark hole that I was in. And unfortunately, I found one negative story after another. I found so many people suffering online, which was breaking my heart. I didn't feel there was any hope for me out there. So again, I decided in that moment, maybe I can be the hope. Maybe if I turn my life around and I find a way to get myself glowing again, I can be the hope and inspiration for other skin angels out there in the world looking for a way out. So at that point, I kind of drew up this vision of, I need to make myself glow, I need to find all the tools, then I'm going to write a book, and I just wrote this magical future for myself, which felt so far from my reality, but it gave me hope, it gave me a purpose, it gave me a mission to kind of fight on. And then obviously the next morning I woke up in severe pain, hadn't slept, and was covered in eczema. And it was, moments like that where I'd sunk backwards, had a spurt of inspiration, that my mum actually turned to me and she said, right, Camille, I'm going to book you in with someone for NLP. Let's figure out and sort your mindset. And I want you to write 10 things you're grateful for today. And I was like, 10 things I'm grateful for? Have you seen everything I'm dealing with here? But nevertheless, she persevered and she was like, you've got things to be grateful for. You can breathe, you can walk, you can read. And she made me realize so many things that I could feel grateful for. And when I then, got the appointment with the NLP practitioner, which I reluctantly went because I was like, my mind's fine. I'm so strong. I didn't realize how much healing would come of that and how much turning my negative mindset to a more optimistic one would be actually the moment that my life would change, the moment I would start sleeping again, which sleeping meant I was starting to heal my skin. And slowly but surely, the mindset helped me join all the dots to be where I am today.
I had actually never heard of NLP until I started reading about you while I was researching for this interview. So for anyone listening who hasn't heard about it, how would you describe it to someone who doesn't know what it is?
So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Reprogramming. And by that, it means that you sit down with a practitioner and they kind of help you figure out what is going on in your mind. And it's not all the thoughts that would naturally come, it's what's going on in your subconscious mind that's ruling your day-to-day life. So when I sat down with the practitioner, he would ask me questions about my life, and little did I know there was things that were hurting me underneath everything I was going through. There was my skin, but there was things in my life that were upsetting me. And then he helped me reprogram those things. So say, for example, I felt trapped in my condition. He would help me reframe it and go, I am free to live my dream life. So he would help me reframe anything that was really dragging me down mentally into a more optimistic way until I believed it, until my subconscious believed it, until I was living by that positive thought. So it's reprogramming that subconscious mind to be a more helpful mindset in living your best life, I would say.
This is really fascinating. And I know you mentioned in your previous answer, you had mentioned your mom. And it sounds like she has really been such a positive influence, both in terms of encouraging you to explore your mental health. And I know healthy eating and what you put it into your body is really very important to you as well. And it sounds like she was a major influence in both of those areas.
Yes, definitely. I'm so grateful for my family, and my mum in particular. She was there in the darkest times, and she really did try and help me find a way out. I think it's very easy when you're not supported to think there's no other options, but she was really there rooting for me, ever since I was a child, trying to figure out, okay, how can we get control of this condition so it doesn't rule her life? So yeah, I'm very grateful for her.
So along this journey, I know we talked about in 2013 is when you were in hospital, then you left, you started this process of NLP, of kind of changing your mentality, of doing these affirmations and really starting to embody some of that positive messaging. And then you mentioned, having that dream about giving hope to other people. So tell me about bringing that to life and your book and your skincare line as well.
Thank you. So it's been such a magical journey. I mean, obviously at the beginning, I was trying to find the puzzle pieces, and the puzzle pieces now are under the HOPE principles. So if something was working for me, I'd write it down. I had like a list of things that were working and a list of things that weren't working. For example, like working would be, okay, eating well is good for me, but then not working would be obsessing over food. So it was finding like the right balance. And then once I had all my puzzle pieces of living a glowing life, and living a glowing life is living a glowing life from within. I'm not going to say that I'm always got perfect skin and that I never flare up or have sensitivity. I do, because life can be stressful sometimes. But for the most part, I have it under control and I live a glowing life, a happy life, and I've got my principles that guide me and help me. Once I found all those things, I had all my checklist, and then I decided I'm going to become a health coach because I wanted to have a certification to, really make my work credible. And when I did the health coaching certification, it really solidified all the things that I already knew. It was like, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. So it really made what I already knew, really okay. And then I wanted to become a natural chef. So I did another certification to be a natural chef. But at the same time, I was always writing my book. So I was journaling my journey, writing my story. Sometimes I had to leave it because it was too painful to look back on. And if I looked back too much, I would get a flare up. So it was a couple of years until I really was at a safe space that I felt like I could talk about it and share it and release this book into the world. So yeah, for around 12 months, it was when I really put my book structure together, and I worked with a book coach to help me kind of figure out, okay, how can I put all these tools under an acronym that would make sense. And working with her, she made me realize, she was like, Camille, what is the main purpose of your mission, your book? And I said, to give hope. I'm not looking to give a cure. This is my story. This is what works for me. But the main thing is I want to give hope, because when you give hope, it just gives a shining light for somebody that may just need it, like I did when I came out of hospital, just to go, she did it, so can I. So that's where the Hope Principles came from. We put all the tools under the Hope Principles, and they fit nicely into the book. And then after I launched the book, I went on to creating the journal, which I've got somewhere around here, the affirmation cards, the skincare. It feels like I've been nonstop ever since. But I found incredible experts along the way to help me bring my dream to life. And it's so far positively impacted so many angels. I'm so proud to say.
I read the Hope Principles, and what I love about them is they're so simple but so impactful at the same time. In reading them and thinking about how you can apply them, it's not overwhelming, but it's also these small things that you think about, like, oh, well, yeah, why am I not doing that already? Of course that will make things easier. So tell me more about the Hope Principles. And I know some of our listeners and viewers maybe haven't heard about them before.
Yeah, isn't it funny how you do think, of course sleep's beneficial, or of course being out in nature, but until someone tells you, like, look, doing these things will make you feel better, make your mental health better, your physical health, you just forget to do them, don't you? It's always the simple things that are actually the golden ticket to everything we all need. So yeah, under the Hope Principles, so H stands for home. And under home is declutter, because I believe a clear space equals a clear mind, which equals clear skin. Also comes environment. So after you've cleared your space, it's all about making your dream environment. So for me, I love being by the beach and the sea, but currently I'm living in the city. So because I'm not in my dream environment, I'll put ferns up, I'll put pictures of the sea, and I will make my dream environment in the place I'm living to make me feel more like at home. Then the third thing under H for home is sleep. And sleep, again, golden ticket to glowing skin, well-being, mental health, everything. But as a sensitive skin angel, it's not that easy to get. I remember for 8 months, I didn't sleep a wink. I was, unfortunately, I hate to say this word, scratching, but I usually don't say it from my subconscious mind, every single night, and I was waking up full of blood and cuts and dry skin. It was such a painful, horrible time. Wow. Which is why I talk about how important sleep is, and in my book I talk about how to get it, how you can get your sleep, and it's working on your mind, it's working on having that 20-20-20 power down hour, it's getting the right bedroom for you, and it's all these little lifestyle tools and hacks that can help you get a better night's sleep. So rest assured, it is possible. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with your sleep, there are tools out there that can help you. Under O is for optimism. So as I spoke about earlier, it's all about having that optimistic mindset. And in order to cultivate that, I like to do my affirmations, as we mentioned earlier, my journaling and visualization. I'm huge on vision boards and imagining my dream life before it's there, just like I have with my business and my life now. I saw it so clearly in my mind, even when I was covered in eczema. So I'm big on visualization because it helps you think about where you're going rather than where you are. And then P stands for purpose and pampering. I believe that purpose is so important. It helps you get out of bed in the morning for a meaning in your life. And to some people that may be being a parent or helping a charity or volunteering somewhere. For me, it was helping people with sensitive skin. And just knowing that I was having that positive impact was helping me bounce out of bed in the morning. And as I said, P also stands for pampering. So it's finding the right products that are suitable for you. So as a sensitive skin angel, I know that I couldn't use any products. So it's finding one suitable for you, but also just taking time for self-care. We all say that self-care is important, but how often do we schedule it into our diary, an hour time for us? And self-care can look like getting your nails done, or it can look like having a bath, or it can just like 15 minutes to sit there with a cup of tea and breathe. It's just making sure we have that time for ourselves. And then under E of the Hope Principles is ecotherapy. So it's all about getting out in nature. Nature is so healing. Exercise is all about moving the body. Movement equals positive emotion. So yeah, motion equals positive emotion. And the third one is eating well. So I put eating well instead of eating perfectly, because as I mentioned earlier, it's about having a balanced diet, enjoying what you eat, not eating just to heal. And then to wrap up the Hope Principles is S for support and stress management, because support is key here, because so many people feel so isolated when living with sensitive skin. And I'm here to say you're not alone. There's actually millions of people all over the world with sensitive skin, just like you, and you're so loved and supported.
Oh, it was really cool to hear you kind of break those all down, because I did read them on your website, but just hearing you say them and hearing all of those examples, it really does bring to life just how much you can do by just making some of these small changes. The one actually that you said that really stuck with me was about sleep. I used to work on a morning show. And so I was waking up at, 3:30 or 4 in the morning every day for almost 6 years. And I didn't even realize how much it was impacting just my overall health and overall feeling, I guess, until I stopped and then started sleeping regularly. And people would just after say to me, you look younger, you seem happier and more motivated, and all of these things that I really just didn't realize were being so impacted by not getting that proper sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Sleep is so powerful. So powerful.
Yeah. And I know you were mentioning that it was one of the most challenging parts for you during some of the times when you were having those really serious eczema flare-ups.
Yeah, it was. I mean, as I say, I don't think I slept for 8 months, and you can imagine how much that impacts your mind and your skin. Your skin can't heal if you're not sleeping. And I was actually really frightened for myself, because it started to turn into the bed used to turn into a place that I feared, because every time I went to sleep, I wasn't sleeping. I would go into this I'd kind of fall asleep, but for the most part, I'm tearing my body apart. I'm ripping my skin. I'm bleeding, and I'm unaware. It's like I'm not in control of my body anymore. And it's frightening, because you kind of become conscious and you're just lying there with blood, and it's awful. And that was super scary. But what I want to say is that the moment I got NLP, the first night after having one session, I slept without scratching. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, what a difference, especially after such a painful and traumatizing experience. I know you showed a picture earlier. I had also seen some of them online, and that was really the first indication I had of just how serious eczema could be. So to go from that to just, even like you said, not sleeping for 8 months and having that first night of sleep after one session, you must have woken up the next day and just felt like a new person.
I was so happy. I was so motivated. I had hope. I was like, oh my gosh, something's clicked here. He's done something to my brain. I feel like I have hope. And yeah, I just knew that was the turning point, as you say.
You mentioned earlier too, when you had left the hospital, you were doing a lot of research online. You were looking for other people who maybe someone with a similar story that could give you some hope. And then you didn't find it. And over time, one of your goals was really to be that person who could offer that hope to others. So tell me, what do you hear from other people now who may be in a similar position to what you were in 2013?
I hear that I'm finally understood. That is the most, I'm like, you understand me. Oh my goodness, you've given me hope. I mean, sometimes I get direct messages where it's actually very emotional reading it. I've had people message me from hospital saying, I've seen your story. I'm in hospital. I'm in the place you were. thank you so much for sharing your story because I believe that I can find a way out too. Or people saying, I considered taking my life today, and after watching your story, I now don't want to. You know, literally messages very, very deep like that. And I feel I'm really glad that I shared my story to be able to give hope like that, but it also feels like a lot of responsibility as well, because I do realize how horrible it can be to live with the condition and just how much it can affect your mental health to that to that point. So yeah, I on the positive side, a lot of people are saying they feel understood, they feel they've got hope, and once they have followed the hope principles, I'm getting tons of before and after pictures of just how much it's transformed their skin. And it's not from, the skincare, because the skincare is a moisturizer and a wash. It's not a medication, but it's that overall lifestyle change that they've made. They're seeking help for their mental health. They're sleeping better. They're making dietary changes. And all of the hope principles are, 1, they've got hope. 2, they've got tools. And 3, they're empowering themselves to change their life. So, yeah.
That must be incredibly rewarding, especially after everything that you have been through.
Yeah, I can't even explain. It's everything. It means the absolute world to me because it makes everything worth it. Everything that I've poured my heart and soul into, and it also gives so much meaning to what I went through. I'm so glad I was able to, turn my pain into power and inspire so many people. And every day I inspire myself as well. When I see other people's stories, I'm like, okay, if I'm having a rough day, look what I did. I can handle this today. So yeah, I can't even put into words, how proud I am.
I watched your YouTube video where I believe it was one of the first times you really publicly talked about your experience in 2013. You show some of the photos where you can really just tell how painful that was. And I know it has been some time now since you first shared your story. You do it much more regularly now. But in that video, I could really see the pain in your face. It was very emotional. So how is it for you now as you're kind of in this next phase where your story is really helping others? But how does it feel for you now to revisit some of those more difficult moments?
I still feel vulnerable because it's still me and I could still, close my eyes and go back to that moment. But I feel so much stronger. I feel like before I tried to not associate myself with that girl, there was a period of time where I just wanted to be the girl beyond it and I didn't want to look back too much. And that's why it was so painful to share the pictures on the video, my story, because every time it broke my heart. And I think the more I've looked at it, the more I'm so proud of that girl. I'm like, oh my gosh, Camille, that was you. I'm so proud of that girl because she's so strong. I think I'm so proud of myself now, but I think it's a lot easier to be strong and brave when you're sleeping well and your skin's okay. But yeah, I would say that it's become a lot easier because I've grown to love that girl, become so proud of her. And still I have my vulnerable moments where it's like, but on the more so, I'm so proud of being able to share my story, so proud of that I was able to heal from what I went through, and so proud of what I've created and impacted, most importantly, other people's lives. My goal was to help one person. I said, if I help one person, then I've done something positive. I've always wanted to do something good for the world. And the fact I've helped more than one is mind-blowingly amazing. And I'm so happy.
Absolutely. I mean, this community that you have created just by sharing your story, by spreading this message of positivity, I really appreciate that you talked about that it is really focused on your story. As we know, some people still do need, those medical interventions as well. And not to discount this, but to kind of add this layer of hope and positivity and inspiration on top of that is really something you should absolutely be proud of. So I'm glad. It must be amazing to be in a place where you can kind of look back and reflect and see those, almost the before and after person existing together.
Yes, 100%. And I'm really glad you touched on, the medical side, because I always say to anyone asking me, make sure you speak to your doctor, make sure you get medical support. And these are lifestyle tools that you can do alongside. It's about having the lifestyle tools that eventually, hopefully, you won't need the medication. Always, seek your doctor's advice. These are extra tools you can have alongside, because there's no harm in taking care of your mental health, your diet, your exercise alongside the medication doctor may prescribe.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned that part of the one of the most challenging parts of the process was also feeling really isolated, as you felt alone. You isolated from your friends during the time when your eczema was at its worst. How long did it take you to kind of come out of that and to reconnect with people?
I think it was slow and steady. Obviously, I had the huge flare up the moment I started to kind of be in a better place with my skin. The first time I kind of hung out with friends was with two of my guy best friends, and they took me on a road trip, and we just had so much fun. And I realized how much they just loved me for me, and I started to let them in on what happened. And then whenever I saw a friend, I would kind of let them in and slowly tell them what happened. And every time I spoke to a close friend, they were like, whoa, Camille, like, we would have been there for you. And I was always telling them, well, the doctor couldn't help me, so I didn't feel you could help me, and I didn't want to be a liability. But they were all so loving, and it took time to really let them in. But once I did, I wish that I'd let them in when I needed them the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're going through something like that is so personal and in a way unique, in the sense that, you might not feel like somebody who's not going through it can really understand, right, what you're experiencing. I wondered if that impacted your romantic relationships at all. I imagine it might have been hard to also be open with a romantic partner when you're experiencing something so personal, and also that would have a physical result to it too.
100%. I had a partner at the time, a boyfriend, and, we ended up being mostly friends. And looking back, going to work, he would help me get dressed, in the sense that he'd put bandages around my arms. He was caring for me like a loving person would, and I'm so grateful for him. But it definitely impacted a relationship. I feel like if you can't care for yourself and be who you are, you don't have anything to give. And I was a completely empty cup. So grateful for everything he was doing for me out of the goodness of his heart, because he was a good person. But yeah, I don't think having a relationship when you're that unwell, I think it's extremely difficult. As I say, I had nothing to give. So it did. Nonetheless, I had somebody supporting me the whole way. So I'm incredibly grateful for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a juxtaposition to going from talking about, having nothing to give to where you are now after this journey, and having a cup that's overflowing and doing so much really to give back to the people around you, and to the people who are really identifying with your story.
Yeah, I think a characteristic of mine is I am really caring, and I love to give. I love to help people. I want to make a positive impact, so I get just as much back, when I help people. And I always think about little me, who would love to have had just some support, someone that understood her. And it's like you say earlier, there's people that love you, had best friends, a partner, but they didn't have eczema, they didn't have sensitive skin. They still couldn't quite understand to the level I was suffering. And that is why I've created, the Beauty of Eczema tribe, because I want people to feel like, they've got a circle that just gets them. So,
yeah. And now you have this community. You have, I know we talked about your book, the journal. We talked about your skincare line. Did you have any kind of business background before you kind of ventured into this area?
Not so much a business background, but I did study marketing and brand management at university. My father's a self-made businessman, so I always watched him, create startup businesses. I never thought that I was going to be a businesswoman because I didn't see that for myself, and I struggled, with the courses at university. And now I see what I'm doing and what I'm running. I'm like, wow, this is you, Camille. So yeah, that's the most experience I had, and I feel like I've learned a lot along the way.
I bet. And this is kind of cool, actually, because I know we talked about your mom earlier being very, she's a naturopath, I believe, right?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Yes. So she's kind of got the like health background and like the interest in healthy lifestyle. And then you've got your dad with the business background, and you kind of like really combined those two things in your own business.
Yeah, exactly. Unknowingly, interesting. Yeah, because my mum studied to be a naturopath when I was, trying to heal from my eczema. So I think that was one of her, if I can learn this, I can help my daughter. And then, yeah, my dad, he's always been a businessman and, from nothing. So I've watched him work very, very hard. And he's always said to me, if you never give up, you never fail. So I've had this mindset that if I never give up, I never fail. So whenever I'm struggling, I'm like, you never give up, I never fail. And yeah, so I've taken a lot from them both.
That's really fascinating. I love that. If you never give up, you never fail. What great words to live by right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit more about the skincare line, because I imagine that was a really interesting process to go through kind of the development and thinking about, I know it's vegan and cruelty-free and having those principles along the way. So what was that like in kind of the development and the product creation side of things?
So exciting. It was such a dream come true in creating them. And growing up, I could never use many beauty products because of my sensitive skin. There was so many beautiful products that my friends would use, and I would just have this massive kind of plain white moisturizer that I take everywhere. Even if my skin was glowing, if I used like a beautiful product, I would flare up. Which I found really quite sad because I felt like I've been a little bit left out of the beauty world. And then growing up, I started, to learn about natural brands, but even natural didn't mean that it was safe for my sensitive skin. So when I got the opportunity of creating my own brand and own skincare that I dreamt of, there was so many things on the checklist. One, it had to look beautiful. Two, it had to be as natural as possible. 3, it had to be safe for sensitive skin, and especially eczema-prone skin like mine, to the point where I did extra sensitive skin testing, clinical trials to check and prove that the formulations would be okay for the most sensitive of skin. Vegan and cruelty-free, it was dermatologically tested, as mentioned. So yeah, there was so many tick boxes, recycled packaging. I wanted the packaging to be imperfectly perfect to promote skin and body positivity. Had so many checkpoints, and I worked with a lady that worked with Boots, so she understood bringing a product to market. I worked with an award-winning formulator to help me work out what ingredients to put in. Like, I had a bunch of ingredients that I loved, but when I worked with her, she would say, yes, that's great, or have you thought about this? And we kind of worked together on the formulation until it was, in my eyes, perfect, and then brought it to market. So,
wow, very, very cool. And just the latest step in an incredible journey for you over the last 8 years. I'm so excited to see, what you do next. You've already done so much. You're so young. And I wanted to ask you, as you kind of reflect on these last 8 years, it's been 8 years since your biggest turning point. So what would you say has been your biggest learning in that time?
Wow. I would say that nothing's impossible. If you can dream it, you can make it happen. I don't believe in impossible. There's always a way. You'll find people that will support you. Um, Make sure you speak about what you're going through. Find people that will support you. Find people that will listen. There are your kind of people out there, and people genuinely do care about you. So that was another thing I learned. And finally, mental health is everything. I think if you have got strong mental health, physical health, again, you can make anything happen. And if you keep in check with your emotions can impact your life. So it's feeling them, releasing them, and letting them flow, and then you can glow. So, yeah, I hope that made sense. Mental health, emotions, getting support, and nothing is impossible. You really can do whatever you set your heart to do. You can see it, you can make it happen.
What a perfect note to end this on. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom, for talking about all of your experiences. I know some of the things we talked about today were not easy to talk about. I really appreciate you sharing your story. You've already helped so many people, and I'm really excited to continue to follow along, Camille.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And where can people find you? I know there are going to be people who are going to want to connect with you after this.
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube, mostly on Instagram. If you want to follow the product page, it's the Beauty of Eczema.ca in Canada. If you want to try the skincare, it's at Shoppers Drug Mart, which is super exciting. We've got the skin wash and the moisturizing cream, which you can try. But yeah, mostly on Instagram, Camille Knowles or the Beauty of Eczema.ca.
Amazing. Thanks again, Camille, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Sending all my love. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was great to have you. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We hope you'll tune in again next week. And until then, take good care of yourselves and of each other.